clients went from being paid more than 1,000 Rand a month in fees in February to 570 Rand, then 484 Rand, and then this month, not a single cent. Now, to shed more light on the story, we're joined on the line by Andy Tupayatlase, who is the HOD at the Legal Department at the National Consumer Commission. Andy, good morning to you and welcome to AM News.
Thanks, Elvis.
A very disturbing story. Could you please explain to us, for those that don't know, about this 699 Rand scheme? How does it work, and how do people go about getting it?
Well, how it works is that when the consumer comes in to buy a vehicle, there are two contracts that they sign. The first contract is, your ordinary finance agreement that you sign with the bank.
For the full price?
For the full price. Mm-hmm. And your obligation to the bank remains exactly that, whatever amount that the bank will give you as your monthly installment. Mm-hmm. And then there's the separate advertising agreement that you sign with, we are told, a blue something, a company, for which you are then paid a particular amount a month for, depending on the mileage that you've been given to drive around with that giant sticker that you're talking about. Mm-hmm. The problem that we find with that is that, we are told that you are paid a fee for doing certain mileage in a month, and for that reason it's justifiable then to say that you are paying a car, for example, 699 Rand because, of that offset fee that you are paid, to be able to make up for the difference between what you are given by the advertising company vis-a-vis your obligation to the bank. Mm-hmm. We have been approached by, a number of consumers, for example, to complain about the amount of money that they are not being, given vis-a-vis what they've been promised. We've had a problem ourselves as the National Consumer Commission in dealing with those contracts because by their very nature, they are not consumer agreements.
Yes.
They are actually a service provider agreement, and us as the National Consumer Commission, we only deal with a contract to the extent that it is a consumer-supplier relationship that is being created by the transaction, which in this case it's not, because the consumer is actually using his vehicle to advertise. So he's providing an advertising service to whether Satinsky or whoever it's providing, he'll be providing that service to. So to that extent, it's not a consumer agreement. But we've also looked at the nature of that message that is displayed on that giant stick that you're talking about, yes. Because it's actually not advertising either the company that is advertising or Satinsky. It's just saying 699, and that's the cash phrase. Mm-hmm. And to the extent that we can classify that as false or misleading advertisement, that's the angle at which we'll be looking at this ourselves as the National Consumer Commission. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Is this type of contract legal, though, where you have two contracts, one with the bank, one with the advertising agency, so to speak?
When you look at the principles of a contract in law, really, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just the way it's implemented, because what is on paper is not necessarily always what you get, as what you have been promised in terms of the contract. But I have had a look at the advertising contract. On the face of it, there's nothing wrong with it, because when we see this happening all the time during, for example, election campaigns. We see political parties having their advertisements, but that's exactly what they're advertising. They are campaigns, they are political parties,
Yes.
to sway. In this instance, we've got this giant sticker that is not saying what exactly is being advertised. All what you see, and they know for a fact that the cash phrase there, for somebody who wants to buy a vehicle, he's not able to get finance from the bank. The cash and interesting phrase there, it's 699. So that is what gets people to coming down there to buy these vehicles and then be made to sign these dual contracts. But on the face of it, there's nothing wrong with it. Mm-hmm. The only problem that we've got is exactly what is being advertised.
Yes.
Is Satinsky as a company being advertised? No, that's not what the giant sticker is saying. Is Blue Label, whatever, advertising for Satinsky? But if that was the case, the name Satinsky will appear there. So the cash phrase there is 699.
Own a car for 699
exactly.
and an SMS line.
Which actually it's not true, because I asked the question to say, if your obligation to the bank it's 2,500 Rand, and I say to you, for advertising my company, which in this case is not, I'll give you 1,000 Rand. Do I have then a right to say you are driving a car for 1,000 Rand? That is not the case. Mm-hmm. Because I may be employed, and my employer will then have a right to say, because you are paying this much from a salary that I'm paying you, I can say you are driving a car for free.
Yes.
Because it's exactly as
so it's a very difficult situation.
Yes. The problem here is actually in not so much in the contract that the consumer sign with whoever, but in the message that is being put on the vehicle. That is misleading, because that's what gets people flocking to go and buy these cars and ultimately not get because at the end of the day, your obligation to the bank remains.
Yes.
If they don't pay you whatever they are promising you on the secondary contract, the bank...
It's not the bank's problem.
Yeah. I'm made to understand NCR will be looking at the bank's relationship with Satinsky. We don't have that contract. Probably is what will define the role of the banks in this, but to the extent that we don't have that right now, I don't know what's the relationship.
Because that was going to be my next question. Yes. The financial institutions, what are their role in this respect? Because I believe that there are some people that are not even credit worthy that would go to Satinsky and get the contract from Satinsky, and the bank will give the credit to the consumer to buy the vehicle.
Yeah. If at all a consumer, according to the assessment of the bank, the consumer is not credit worthy. But he's been given finance on the basis of the secondary contract. That is what the banking institution is taking into account. I think to that extent, National Credit Regulator can look into that. The viability of the amount that consumers are being promised and the reasons why banks will take that into account in their general financial assessment of a consumer. If at all there's doubt about the viability of this, because you see, if at all there's a particular relationship, very specific contractual that the banks are having with Satinsky, at general level, to say, if you bring in consumers that you are promising this amount of money, then will be... I think that relationship can be looked at. I'm uncomfortable with it.
In terms of a negative outlook for the bank?
For the bank, yes.
Now, what happens now to the consumers which are already trapped in this particular contract? Will their vehicles now be repossessed by the banks?
The banks will. Probably a relevant authority will have to look at the contractual agreement, if there's any, between the banks and Satinsky. And to the extent that questions can be raised with regards to that, as to whether it was really a correct way by the banks to go in assessing those consumers, as creditworthiness. And it is found that could amount to reckless lending by the NCR. Then banks may have to I'm told that there's a court case that is going on, but depending on the outcome of there is a possibility that banks may not necessarily have to repossess, but finance those vehicles, just recalculate or re-look at the whole arrangement. But they may have to take a bullet for what their role is in those kind of transactions. For now, I don't know, but if banks are found to have lended recklessly on the basis of the assessment of the Satinsky contract that they're having generally with the group, then the banks may have to...
They'll be in hot water?
They may be in the hot water, yes.
Andy, thank you so much for your time and visiting us here on AM News. Okay, that was Mr. Andy Tupachelase, who is the HOD at the Legal Department at the National Consumer Commission. So if you've got a contract like that, I don't know what to say. Let's take a break and we'll be right